everyone, today I'm here with my most recent wrap-up. For now, I've decided to maybe go back to monthly wrap-ups. I don't really read that many books in a month anyway, so it's most cases going to be 3 to 4 books a month anyway. But I read only 3 books in the month of February and then 2 books in the month of March, so I might as well combine them and talk about the 5 books that I read recently and then carry on with April wrap-up maybe at the end of the month. We'll see how it goes. I don't know if that's going to be a permanent thing from now on or not, but I've just decided to do it that way because I stopped enjoying the 3-book format. So let's just gonna go in the order of the books that how I read them. So the first book that I'll be talking about is the one I read in February, the first one I read in February, and that is The Shape of Darkness by Laura Purcell. And I love this author so much. I've read, I believe, all of the books that she's written. I've read The Silent Companions, The Corset, Bone China, and now this one, and I also have The Whispering Muse, which I have not read yet, but I have it, so for whenever I'm in the mood for that one, I'll read it. But her books are like historical fiction, but with a slightly creepy element. That's what I like about her books, especially the writing style is always very immersive, very beautiful. Love her books. They're always really full of suspense and everything, so this was not an exception. I gave this one 5 stars. I did. And it's a signed edition as well, which is great. So this book is set in Victorian Bath, and we have our main character who she's like a photographer, but like old-fashioned photographer. I can't exactly explain it. She does these like cuts out of people, and obviously they pay her money and then she gives them back to them. I think it's like sketching, but somehow cutting with scissors. I'm not 100% sure how that works. I don't really know, and I'm not sure if that's a reflection of the book that I still don't really quite understand how it works, or it's just me not being able to understand how it works. I think it might be the second one, because I wouldn't fault the book for anything, because it's really like descriptive but not overly descriptive, if you know what I mean. So I wouldn't blame that on the book in the slightest way. I think it's just me not understanding the old time things. But yes, so got distracted there a little bit. So yes, that's her like business, that's what she's doing, although recently a couple of her clients have been killed recently, so there seemed to be some weird story going on. Who is targeting her business, and are there going to be more victims? These are the questions that she asks herself. Again, what I can say about this one, the atmosphere is great, the writing style is great. I just love the books. I'm very biased when it comes to this author. I've always loved her books, and I think I always will, so there's no doubt about that. I'm a little bit biased, and because I read this book in February, I know it probably sounds really bad, but I can't remember every detail. But I remember really enjoying it. At the beginning I thought it was going to be like a 4-star book, but closer to the end it convinced me that it is a 5-star book. It wouldn't be my favourite book by her though. Silent Companions is still definitely up there, and I still remember bits of that one, whilst this one I remember a lot less, even though I only read it a couple of months ago. But it's also, I think, a reflection on my memory rather than the book itself as well. It was constantly suspenseful. You always think, is it like some supernatural thing going on here, or is it not? I obviously can't tell you anything about it, but the reveal, there were quite a few reveals, especially towards the end. I did not get some of it. So to me, there was one specific thing that was really obvious throughout the whole thing to me. I sort of knew who was behind all of that, but then there was a twist that surprised me, and I thought, okay, this is great. So I think at that point I decided to give this one 5 stars, because it still managed to surprise me. So love her books, always will love her books, I think. So yeah, I don't know if that's enough to tell you what I thought about it, but like I said, the atmosphere, the plot is very intriguing. It's never boring. It's always like suspenseful, and you're immersed into that Victorian Bath, and I love Bath, by the way. And I just love the atmosphere of historical fiction, especially the historical fiction that Laura Purcell writes, because like I said, it's always very atmospheric. You're always in there, you always feel the time, and it's always following a couple of characters. And this one we also have like a spiritualist who is a little girl who basically like speaks to ghosts, and these two women somehow might have interacted and sort of work together. I forgot to mention that part as well. But yeah, so we kind of go from one point of view to another, but mostly we are in the photographer's head, which was interesting. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And like I said, even though I knew who was behind all of that, there were still quite a few surprises, especially towards the end, that I did not expect. That made me give this book 5 stars. The next book that I read in February was actually an audiobook. I think it was the only audiobook that I've read so far, and that was Chapter and Curse by Elizabeth Penny. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but I gave that one 3 stars. This is like the first book in a cozy mystery series, and we follow 2 main characters who, to start with, they live in the United States, but then they get a letter from their aunt who is from Oxford in the UK, and she's asking for help with the bookshop, and they jump at the chance and go to the UK, and they basically leave all of their life behind and start new life in the UK in the bookshop. And it's all cozy and lovely, and one of the things that they're doing for the bookshop is to do this like poet reading. Who is a really famous poet is going to be in there, but after that, or during that, there's one person who is killed, and the murder weapon is her auntie's knitting needles. So I won't say anything more than that, but it was cozy. I don't know if it's just cozy mysteries. I like the idea of cozy mysteries, but they don't always work for me in a way. I always like them, I always enjoy them. There's never really anything wrong with them. They're just nice and enjoyable books. But I never give them more than 3 or 3.5 stars. I don't think there's been a single cozy mystery that I've given 4 stars to. Might have given it 4 stars. I don't read them very often, to be honest, but I always like the idea of them, and maybe I've just come across the ones that are not exactly my cup of tea, or not exactly, I've just been pretty unlucky with them maybe. But it's not to say that there was anything wrong with the audiobook. There wasn't anything wrong with the book itself. It just felt a little bit, I don't know, a little bit underwhelming, I guess. Like, it's obviously lovely to be in a bookshop. There are activities that they're doing for that bookshop. There's also a little bit of like romance plot line in there as well, which I think kind of threw me off, because I don't always need that in books, because I don't know, sometimes I'm just not in the mood for that. Sometimes it's just interesting to follow a different sort of scenario, there's a murder there, come on. We don't want to read about love story. But yeah, I think it's part of cozy mysteries in quite a lot of the cases. But it's not to say that it was a weird thing or anything. Like, I haven't got anything against that specific love plotline in there. It's just, for me personally, I might have preferred if it wasn't there, or if it was a rather slower going thing like throughout the series, rather than sort of start rather quickly in this first book. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what I mean. But yeah, it was a nice book. It was enjoyable. It was cozy. It did what it had to do, and there's descriptions of bookshop and tea and all of the different characters, and it's all like cozy, all going steadily. It's a nice book. It's a nice read, but I didn't get anything more out of it, and I'm not going to carry on with the series because, again, it didn't really grip me enough. And next time I'll just try to get into a different cozy mystery series and hopefully have more of luck with that, but I will not be carrying on with this specific one. Next one, and the last one that I read in February, is In the Dark by Kara Hunter. Kara Hunter's become definitely one of my favourite authors, and this is book number 3. This is book number 2 in the series of D.I. Adam Foley thriller series. So I read this one quite quickly after I'd read the first one, Close to Home, which I did read in January, and then of course I had to go into the second one. So yeah, this one I have given it 5 stars. I love her books, honestly. As it is a D.I. Adam Foley thriller, we obviously follow a police investigation. In this case, we follow a case where a woman and a child, a toddler, were found in a basement room of a house. And the owner of this house, who's an older person, he claims he's never seen them before and he doesn't know what they're doing there and how they got there. He basically doesn't know anything about them. So there's a mystery of how this happened. Is he lying? Or is there something else going on? It was really interesting. I loved it. Again, she's amazing at creating the perfect intrigue and is perfectly paced as always, and it's nothing like, not a single detail there that shouldn't be there. All of these little details that picture the whole thing, they're just perfection. And the chapters are again really short, and we've got like mixed media as well, and they're different, sometimes emails, could be different pieces of evidence, it could be sometimes different photos or articles, news articles and things like that. It always pictures like a full picture, and we get to see a lot from different perspectives. We piece it together ourselves as readers, and it's just amazing. Every little detail, sometimes you think you're on the trail, and then one little thing gets revealed by some other evidence or by some other person or whatever, and it throws you off completely into a completely different direction that you weren't expecting. And sometimes it put you back on the first trail, then throw you off back again, or offer you another opportunity, another option that could have happened. It's so interesting. I feel like that might be how police investigations actually work, because it does make sense, and sometimes genuinely little things like timings or something else that could be thrown in there could throw the whole case off course, which is great. I love these books. The intrigue, the plot, everything. It kept me on the edge of my seat quite a lot of the time. I just love her books, honestly. I feel like they're so underrated because I've not heard many people talk about these books, and I think people should read them. So yeah, I love this one. 5 stars, absolutely 5 stars. After that one, I read Spare by Prince Harry, and I read it physically as well as the audiobook to start with, but then I just switched to the audiobook because I couldn't quite physically read it anymore. I think I started in January, and obviously I finished it actually in March, and I think it was like middle of March or somewhere like that, so it took me a very long time to get through it. It's a 400-page book with quite a small font, I would say. I mean, the chapters are short, which helps, and it was, to be fair, really quite good to hear his story in his voice. That was a good addition to the book. I'm not exactly much into royalty. I only bought this book because I was curious about, well, his life and a bit of royal life, because it's not something we really know about a lot. So it was quite interesting to see his point of view of someone who's lived through all of that, and just to see his point of view on his life and Meghan and the marriage and royal family in general and everything. I really enjoyed the first part of the book, the first half of the book, probably a lot more than the second half. Obviously in the first one we talked a lot about his mother's death and his memories of his childhood and stuff like that. That was really interesting, but then sort of halfway through I started losing interest. And however, it might sound bad because it's a non-fiction book, he's just telling the story of his life, I can't really say that I was losing interest because it's just his life, and I feel kind of horrible for saying that. But at the same time, and I think that's the thing with non-fiction, you either enjoy someone's story or life story rather, or you're not. I mean, I did give it 4 stars, so it was definitely interesting. I even cried at the beginning of the book when he was talking about his mum, but I think there's a little bit too much detail sometimes, and it goes into too much detail, and sometimes it's not the most interesting thing. So I think it could have been slightly shorter. It would have been better if it was slightly shorter. And I think on Goodreads at the moment, when I looked at it last time, it had a solid rating of just 4. I've never seen it just 4, not 4 point something, not 3 point something, but 4 on the dot. I've never seen a rating like this before, so I think a lot of people have given it 4 stars. And like I said, it was really interesting to see his point of view and his life, especially the audiobook, hearing it in his voice. But I personally do think it goes into a little bit too much detail, although it's really interesting and really intriguing to see the his point of view of like royal family and how it felt growing up in the royal family, and all of the maybe juicy details that I think maybe the royal family wouldn't want him to say, but he said them anyway. Now the whole world knows about them. It felt intriguing for sure, and I feel like it's a new experience to read a book like this. So I appreciate it for what it was, and I do feel like I know him a little bit more now. So yeah, it was interesting. I did enjoy it, even though it took me forever, but still, it's a good read. And then the last book I read in March was No Way Out by Kara Hunter. As you can see, I was just in the mood for those, but honestly, the books are so addictive. I wanted to read that one almost straight away, so I kind of did read it almost straight away. And this one has a different plot. Obviously every book follows a different plot, but in this one we follow a case of there is a fire in the house, and in that house we've got 2 children, and the toddler is dead whilst his brother is still just in bad condition, but he's still alive. So, and basically there's a question, why were they left alone in the house? Where are the parents? Why they can't get hold of the father? Where is he? What's going on? So many questions. I did give this one actually 4 stars. And now I don't quite remember why I gave it 4 stars. I think it felt like there wasn't too many twists as there were in the first 2 books. I could be wrong. It could be just because I read it so soon after the first 2, essentially, because I sort of binge read them almost, which I never do with series, but this one is a bit different. Like I said, I love her books so much. Maybe that's the reason why I didn't quite give it 5 stars. It just didn't feel like a 5-star. It didn't grip me as much as the first 2 and the 5th one, which I read first like a year ago or so. But it was still good. Still, nothing's changed in a way of short chapters and mixed media, and everything was still there. But also, I think I remember what put me off as well. There was quite a lot of personal drama in lives of 2 characters in this one, which wasn't present in the first 2 books. So having that in this one sort of did throw me off, and that's what I used to like about those previous books, is that we don't know too much about the team and we get snippets of their lives, but only tiny bits, and they don't interfere with the story. Whilst in this one it did feel like it was interfering with the story, and I wasn't exactly a fan of the drama that was going on in the lives of 2 of those team members. And yeah, that's why I've given it 4 stars. But apart from that, it was still a great read, and the story itself was really interesting. It was really complicated, and again, you thought you knew where it was going, then something else would get revealed and it throws you off completely. You go into a completely new direction, you have to consider different possibilities and stuff like that. It was just brilliant. Again, this one is a 4-star, but I'm definitely looking forward to reading the 4th book in a series and carrying on with her books because they're just amazing. But maybe I have to do it after a little break, after I've had some other books to consume and read, and then carry on with that one when I'm in the mood for it again. But yes, these are the 5 books that I wanted to talk to you about. Please let me know if you've read these books and what you thought of them. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe if you want to, and if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye!